gonna be part of our martial law lecture. Oh, hold on. I'm just gonna pull up the slideshow so that we can begin. And this will be the last part of the martial law lecture where we're going to there. Where we are going to focus. Forgive my hoodie, how my hair is really in a mess already. So I have to wear this again because it's really, you don't want to see what's under there because it's really a mess. So I hope it's not that distracting. Okay. So we're gonna talk about Ninoy Aquino, Benigno Ninoy Aquino Jr. Okay, so this is as I mentioned in the previous lecture, he is the staunchest rival of President Marcos. President Marcos probably, I guess, he was the one who spoke out the most against Marcos. So he really was someone that Marcos really wanted to stifle in terms of his voice in the political arena. Okay, let's go to his early life. Oh, we're beside each other. Miss Bay. So we have here the picture of young Ninoy Aquino. So he grew up in Tarlac. He is a son of hacienderos. So he is the son of hacienderos, which means landowners. And he grew up in a very politically, I think I did this already in the last video, where he grew up in a very politically charged family. Like his grandfather was a general in Emilio Aguinaldo's army, and sadly his father was charged as a collaborator with the Japanese. So that gave him something. I know I feel like I'm having deja vu. I really feel like I've said this already. He really felt like he really had to prove something because of what his father did, and prove indeed he did. Okay, so he went to school, he went to prestigious universities. He was going to study to be a lawyer also in UP, also even joining the Upsilon Sigma Phi fraternity of Marcos. However, this pathway was cut short because he wanted to join the Korean War not as a soldier but as a photojournalist. So he was actually the youngest photojournalist to ever do this, and he gained so much prominence as a photojournalist in Korea. Here's another picture of him there. Aren't those shorts a little too short for that guy? Maybe not a good idea. Okay, so anyway, those are things that he did in Korea. Now, when he got back, because he gained prominence as the youngest photojournalist, he caught the attention of President Ramon Magsaysay. Just let me pull up the laser pointer. Hold on. Okay, so this would be President Ramon Magsaysay. And even at a very young age, he was still at his 20s here. He was already considered as one of the most important advisors of Ramon Magsaysay. And Magsaysay really valued the advice that Ninoy Aquino gave, and even gave Ninoy Aquino jobs like, do you know him? Is he familiar? I don't think this is Luis Taruk. You remember Luis Taruk from the Hukbalahap? So I mean, Ninoy Aquino was even given that job, to try to talk to Luis Taruk into a peace settlement. So Ninoy Aquino was really, at a very young age, he was really rising in prominence. And then, of course, he followed the natural course, which is to get married. And as you may already know, the woman that he chose to be his, what? This is a very weird, is this a fold? Because it looks like the line of his long and it goes all the way up. I never really noticed that before, but I doubt that's it. Maybe it just got sort of folded. Anyway, Ninoy Aquino chose a very different woman from the kind of woman that Ferdinand Marcos chose. This is Corazon Cojuangco. Corazon Cojuangco was her maiden name, and she also came from a very politically charged family. In fact, Cory also studied in very prominent universities here and abroad, but she never had that fire that Imelda had. She was a very good she was a strong, a very good influence on Ninoy Aquino, but she did not function in the same way Imelda Marcos did in the life of what you call this, Ferdinand Marcos. So it was a very different kind of strength and support that he gave Ninoy Aquino. And I think she is a very large contributing factor to the kind of man Ninoy Aquino turned out to be, as Imelda Marcos was a very large contributing factor to the kind of man Marcos turned out to be. Okay, so as you can see, she was there through thick and thin. She was there for him, and she was really very loving, a good woman for Ninoy. Now, this is not a picture of Ninoy when he became senator. I think he was a little bit older here, but when he was 25 years old, he became the youngest senator ever to join the House. So he was that promising. He was that promising, a man that even at such a young age they thought that it wouldn't be such a bad thing to elect this really young man into Senate, and then he got into Senate. And of course, at first he was a supporter of Marcos, but when things started to become sour with Marcos, he started to criticize him publicly. He started to probably also, and I don't know, I don't want to judge, but probably because also Ninoy Aquino wanted to also achieve the same level of prominence that Marcos achieved, which is the presidency. And I think one of the ways that he could do that is to be the opposition of the current president, so that he will be kind of the voice of the opposite side, and this can really somehow maybe get you some votes. So I don't know what his motives were. Probably it was selfish, probably it was ambition, but and Marcos a lot. And so when the writ of habeas corpus was suspended during martial law, Ninoy was one of the first who was arrested. So Ninoy was arrested. This is a picture of Ninoy's cell. He was placed in solitary confinement. That is not something you want to be in. You're in jail and you're alone in your cell. You had no one to talk to. Ninoy, in an interview, said that all he had to look forward to for human companionship was the person who brought him his food every day, and and that guard did not even stay very long. So, luoy gyud kaayo si Ninoy was really in a very bad kind of condition. So, and then this isn't Ninoy, but this is a picture of what his cell might have looked like. All he had to wear were two pairs of these boxers and kind of like a sleeveless thing, which he had to wash every day so he will have something clean to wear the next day. This is his trial, that fake trial, military trial where he was sentenced to death. Ay, nako, it's really such a mess. He was not properly presented. As you can see, Cory was there right by his side. And then we have here Ninoy Aquino. As you can see, he doesn't look very well, right? He looks very thin. He looks like he's about to, oh, sorry. He looks like he's about to collapse because he went on hunger strike. Hunger strike is when you refuse to eat until you get heard by a political. I know people in politics, a lot of people in politics usually do hunger strikes, and you say, I'm not going to eat until my voice is heard. I'm not going to eat until justice is served, something like that. And Marcos just kept ignoring him, that he really reached a point of death. But then somebody wrote him a letter, and he kind of woke up, because the letter said, "Now, why are you being so selfish? You can do so much more good to remain alive. So kind of Ninoy snapped out of it, and he said that this time imprisonment, God really humbled him, especially when he's dressed like this. He was such a brilliant mind. He was such a promising, was barely had anything, uh, barely had the comforts of anything, and God really humbled him here. That is according to Aquino, which you will see use in the documentary that I am going to show you. Ninoy spoke about his time in jail as a very good experience for him, which is not really something that you hear when people talk about experience in jail. But when Ninoy spoke about his jail experience, he really spoke about it with appreciation, with humility, and with even gratitude that God allowed that to happen to him. Now, when Ninoy Aquino was in jail, and then he had that fake trial and he was sentenced to death and all of that. In the middle of all of that, he got a heart attack. Okay, he suffered from a heart attack in 1978. He suffered attack, and he had to be sent to America to get surgery because Ninoy was like, I don't think I want to take my chances getting surgery here in the Philippines because all the hospitals, most of the hospitals were owned by the Marcoses. And he was like, what if he decides to like just kind of snip a vein or snip an artery or I don't know. So Ninoy said, is it okay if, will you allow me passage to go to Boston so that I can get my surgery. And of course, maybe this was one way to finally silence Ninoy. So Marcos was like, okay, fine, you can leave the Philippines, go to Boston, basta never come back. Don't don't rally against me anymore. Stop saying bad things about me. And when Ninoy was in Boston, he particularly Corey called it the happiest time of their family life because in Boston, Ninoy for a while really left politics behind. Now, as you can see, this is Chris Aquino here. So their child, Chris Aquino is their daughter. Can you believe it? So this was actually one of the happiest times. Corey loved this time in Boston. They were a normal family. They felt like a normal family. There were no death threats. They were not scared that Ninoy would go to jail and all of that. Oh man, Corey in particular spoke of this time in Boston with such fondness. If you hear her talk about it, you will really feel the joy that she must have felt in her heart during this time. So but while they were in Boston and, Ninoy was comfortable, he was happy, everybody was happy, he kept thinking about the Philippines and he was like, here I am enjoying all this freedom, but what about my country? My country is suffering. And he started to feel bad that while he was enjoying freedom, his country was not. That is for me really the heart of a hero. The a heart of a hero does not have to be a magnanimous. This is what makes a hero magnanimous, that they think about the country above their own comfort, above their own joy, above their own um, happiness. So si Ninoy, he was just kind of like, man, I'm so happy here in Boston, but the Filipinos are not happy. They're suffering. They're suffering under a dictator, and he was always bothered by that. So he declared that he would go back to the Philippines. So he said, I have to go back. I have to speak to Marcos again to try to persuade him to give the people back democracy. But he was warned by so many people and said, Ninoy, if you go to the Philippines, you might get assassinated. But then this is actually when Ninoy said that the Filipino is worth dying for. That is really amazing. That is really something. That's why he's a hero. He he saw us in a way that we Filipinos don't see. We don't see ourselves the way Ninoy saw us. And that is, I think, what made him a cut above the rest. So the next clip is actually a video of the assassination, because they were right. There was an assassination of Ninoy. Ninoy was killed in the airport, and you are going to see it now. Let's watch it together.
Security yeah, but I think I think the very fact alone that we can land is victory enough. Everything after that's bonus. I mean, whether they put me back in the plane and ship me out or bring me to prison, I have promised to return. I have returned against all odds. So that's good enough.
Return.
Now, I am hoping that we'll allow the press in Manila at least to talk for 9 years. The goal was out of France for some length of time. My feeling is we all have to die sometime. If it's my fate to die by an assassin's bullet, so be it. But I cannot be petrified by inaction, fear of assassination, and therefore stay in a corner. I have to suffer with my people. I have to lead them because of the responsibility given to me by
Whoa! I really look at that guy. Ah, get away from him.
yes, you just take it.
Did that that was the assassination of Ninoy Aquino. I should have ended with that because that was really something that I don't think I can. Oh my gosh. I'm just gonna show you this PowerPoint. So So, can you just read this, please? That was really so. I'm just gonna. The end of martial law was actually because of Presidential Decree number 2045. That was this. Oh man, I really cannot. I never should have. I should have showed that clip last. I've I've thought this topic so many times, but every time I show that clip, it still gets to me. Like it was such a brazen, like a thing for Marcos to. I don't know. Okay, okay, okay. I have to clarify that there has never been sufficient proof to point the assassination of Ninoy Aquino to Marcos, but I feel like something major, if the Philippines was under martial law and Ninoy Aquino was killed in public like that, like a public assassination, he must have known about it. At least he knew about it. But the Marcoses keep saying that they had nothing to do with that. Imelda keeps saying that what were we gonna gain because of that? The Marcoses have not charged for the assassination of Ninoy. So this is really a case that has not been solved yet. There is no evidence. The evidences of whoever plotted that has been buried so deep that nobody can get to it. Hopefully one day, maybe one of you, but I never should have showed that. And anyway, oh man, that was really crazy. So that ends our martial law lecture. Way to end martial law. Okay, guys.